Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today I am reviewing one of the most requested cars on my channel as of late, the Cadillac CT4-V Blackwing. I've actually driven a CT4-V Blackwing a couple of years ago when I compared it against a Camaro SS1LE and my brand new at the time Integra Type S. And I came away only mildly impressed. I had really high hopes for the car given it's sitting on the GM Alpha platform, shared with the Camaro SS1LE, which I absolutely adore. But somehow, this car just didn't really click for me. Maybe it was the somewhat bland twin-turbo V6 engine, the extra weight of the car. I'm not too sure, but today I'm going to settle it once and for all because I'm going to spend some quality time behind the wheel of this 2022 CT4-V Blackwing. The owner, Jose, has only done 2 mods to this car, including some Apex VS5 RS wheels wrapped in Michelin PS4S tires, 255 in the front, 275 in the back, and he put on a JB4 piggyback tune, which should bump up the power by around 40 to 50 wheel horsepower. So this should be making over 450 at the wheels right now. This 3.6 liter twin turbocharged V6 is rated at 472 horsepower at the crank and 445 pound-feet of torque. 6-speed manual transmission with an ELSD. It weighs close to 3,900 pounds, and as standard, we get Magneride adaptive dampers and Brembo brakes. As far as usability goes, that's where this CT4-V Blackwing is actually shockingly limited. Front seat comfort, perfectly fine. I actually quite like these aggressive but still highly adjustable power seats, but the rear seat is absolutely abysmal. I tried sitting back there earlier. I'm 5'7" and I barely fit back there. There's very limited headroom, virtually no legroom, and while there is a middle seat, it's essentially unusable. So that aspect of this car confuses me because this is a sports sedan, which is a class of enthusiast vehicle that has always been known to be highly usable and daily drivable, but also offer the performance and thrills of something much more focused. And unlike the previous ATS-V, the climate controls are all physical, which is excellent. We have heated and cooled seats. Feels like a roughly $60,000 car interior. MSRP for one of these in base form, around $64,000 for a brand new 2025 or 2026 model year. And if you're looking for a used one like this 2022, you're looking at somewhere in the $55,000 range, plus or minus 5. So let's see how this drives. So in terms of drive modes, we're going to press the V button, which puts it into this custom mode where we can adjust various parameters, including steering, suspension, engine and shift, brake feel, engine sound, and a PTM or performance traction management system. What I found is I like the steering in the middle setting, the suspension. We're gonna keep it in the most aggressive setting because with Magneride dampers, even in the stiffest setting, it still soaks up bumps pretty well. Everything else will go the most aggressive setting. In V mode, we get this linear tachometer, but it's easy to read. Lots of carbon along the center console here. Very nice touch points, the steering wheel and shifter covered in Alcantara. Oh yeah, lots of mid-range torque from this twin-turbo V6, especially with the JB4 tune. Really good brake feel. Nice firm pedal, easy to modulate. Amazing Tremec 6-speed manual. It feels just like a Camaro transmission. This has auto rev match and no lift shift, but I've turned off the auto rev match, and no lift shift is just weird to me. I can't mentally get past how wrong it feels. Feels definitely quicker than I remember the non-JB4 tuned example I drove a couple years ago. Ooh, yeah. Some things I'm very impressed by after just a couple of corners. Number one is the steering. It actually has really good feedback for an electric power steering rack. I'm actually getting information about the road surface coming through those little jiggles in the wheel as you go over bumps. It loads up nicely in the corner. It's not overly quick or sensitive. Second thing I love is this Magneride suspension. Even in the firmest setting, it soaks up the bumps with no problem at all. Let's see about this engine character. Ooh. Traction limited as expected in first gear. This car builds speed very quickly, but it's got the brakes to slow it down just as quickly. Yeah, this chassis feels excellent. The body control is so good. Why didn't I feel this way the first time I drove this car? Somehow driving this car in isolation now, I'm all of a sudden really impressed. The engine still doesn't have as much character as I'd like. I would definitely prefer naturally aspirated 6.2 liter V8, but there's no arguing with how effective it is. So much mid-range torque, the turbo lag is there, but not overbearing. Pretty easy to predict. Ooh, the mid-range to the top end, you got so much thrust, and the way this car just corners with so much poise, it doesn't feel overly stiff like a true track-focused car, but it's firm enough to where I think this would handle the track just fine with stock suspension. But even in the most aggressive mode, these dampers just soak up every little bump. You feel all the bumps, you don't feel isolated from the road. But there's a level of compliance here that is so impressive. Oh, the thrust from this engine. I think the JB4 really does increase the power output by a noticeable amount. Love the 6-speed manual, the clutch feel, the throttle response, the brake feel. All of the inputs on this car are really good. They feel actually fairly analog. There's some heft behind them. Nothing is overly light, but also nothing is artificially heavy. It feels mechanical, it feels connected. You can just get into a groove with it so easily. It has a low learning curve. Long wheelbase, front engine, rear drive, with excellent inputs, and a communicative chassis. Look at the way it handled that bump. That was one of the most impressive times I've ever driven over that bump. And to think we had it in the stiffest suspension mode. Just a single one and done, no bounce, no harshness, just soaked it right up. Wow. I did not do this car justice the first time I drove it. And I honestly came into today's review with an open mind. Knowing I didn't really love this car the first time I drove it, but also knowing that sometimes you have off days. Sometimes you're just not feeling something for whatever reason. But driving this car in isolation right now in these conditions, absolutely phenomenal. Wheel spin through first, but then in second it actually hooks up quite well for just having Michelin PS4S tires. Dial it back into tour mode, and all of a sudden the suspension is even more plush. Look at the way it handled that bump. I honestly would be very, very hesitant to put aftermarket suspension on this car because the way it's set up from the factory is just perfect for a sports sedan. Again, the point of a sports sedan is to have great driving dynamics but still not beat you up on a daily basis. And Cadillac has achieved that balance here perfectly with the suspension tuning. But then again, that's no surprise because I've always found MagRide dampers to be top notch. It's crazy how my opinion has changed so much. Outside of the engine, I still think the engine seriously lacks character compared to something like the SS1LE. I would love to try a CT4-V Blackwing now. If the overall chassis tuning is similar to this, but just in a bigger and heavier car with way more power and a V8 rumble, that might just be the perfect modern sports sedan. I just drove a G80 M3 Competition X-Drive yesterday, on a different road granted, but that car actually had more mods. It had some front monoballs, SPL parts, and M Performance lowering springs to make the car, in theory, feel more responsive at the front end compared to a stock G80. But this car has so much more feedback. I think power-wise, the G80, even in stock form with a competition package, does feel more accelerative in a straight line, even compared to this with the JB4. But in terms of chassis and communication, this is far superior. The steering feel alone is almost like an order of magnitude more communicative. In comparing manual transmissions, stock versus stock, the Tremec is far better than what BMW has in the G80 or any of their other current offerings. All of the driver inputs of this car have been tuned to perfection, and the chassis tuning is about as good as I've ever felt in a nearly 2-ton vehicle. So I'm gonna go back and re-rate the CT4-V Blackwing in my Zygrene Performance Index. When I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And this time, I admit it, the first time I drove this car, I must have woken up on the wrong side of the bed, because this is so impressive. So big shout out to Jose for letting me review this CT4-V Blackwing, one of the best sports sedans I have ever driven. Not just for a newer sports sedan, but any sports sedan. My only real gripe with this car is the usability. The back seat is atrociously small. Some 2+2 coupes out there have more headroom and legroom. Let me know what you think about the CT4-V Blackwing down in the comments. Do you think it's the best sports sedan you can buy for the money, new or used, or are there even better options out there if you're a real driving enthusiast? Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys very soon.